Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to the Coaching Corner. It is me, Jamila, aka the IEP Coach, and you all know I love Tuesdays. Tuesdays is like my favorite day of the week because I get to come on and talk to you all. So we go live every Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you see me turn to my right, I am going live on our Instagram page so that way they can join in on the conversation as well. For those of you who are new to my page, I am Jamila, aka the IEP Coach. I am the founder and lead consultant for the IEP Coach LLC. We are a consulting company and we focus on helping educational leaders and principals support their educators, specifically their special education educators, with increasing their performance so that way they can thrive and not just survive. We also support parents with understanding the special education process as well as the IEP process. So that is just a little bit about us, okay? Now, we have a special guest today. I'm so happy. Last week we started discussing how to efficiently utilize your instructional assistant or your paraprofessional or aide in the classroom, because you all know, even though I'm not in the classroom no more, I keep my ear to the classroom. I keep my ear to the hallway and everything. And then hallways was talking, saying how it's becoming a little rift with the teachers and the aides, paras, instructional assistants. So I gave some tips last week. So this week I was like, why not have a guest? And her and I have had this conversation before. So without further ado, let me bring on my guest, Miss Anika S. Jones from Holistic Fluency. Welcome, welcome, Anika. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you so much.
All right, all right, all right. Do you hear an echo? Hold up. I'm
I
trying
know
to
I'm
make
turning
sure.
my phone down, so I should be good.
I know I'm turning my phone down, so I should be good.
I just turned mine down. I don't.
Do you hear the phone this time?
You sound okay to me.
Okay, I'm good.
All right.
I'm ready.
Okay, I'm good.
Thank you for having
I'm
me. And
ready.
yes, we've had this conversation way too many
Thank
times.
you.
Just all in our chat and all in our all of the spaces that we're in. Yes, ma'am. We have had this conversation. So I'm ready. Thank you for having me.
For having me.
All right. So just to get started, so now have you had the opportunity, in your career to work with an instructional assistant, aide, or para at all?
I definitely have. So, like at one point in my educator life,
I
right? Thankfully,
so at one point in my educator life, right? Thankfully,
but I was a part of the team because some of y'all know I speak Spanish, so I'm moderately fluent in Spanish. And so what happened was I actually was a part of the team that supported the ELS students, the English language learning students. And so, just similar to students that might be assigned special education, right? Those different sub pops. Those students also had an aide. So, there was an aide that would travel and basically shadow this certain group, like a newcomers group of students. She would shadow their schedule. So what happened was a lot of people really didn't utilize and leverage her very well. So maybe I remember one specific day she came into my room and she was just flustered. And I was like, what is wrong? What's going on? I was like, if you need a minute to step out and kind of reset, those adult moments, like, okay, something's not right. And you want to be your best self in that moment if you can. So, she stepped out, and when she came back, once the young people were starting working, she basically said, you know what, there is someone, like, they're really not respecting. It was one of my coworkers, a fellow teacher. She was like, she's really not respecting what I'm here for, how I service the kids, how I work with the kids, every day. Right. And she's like, if not every day, about 3 to 4 times a week, they have me go make copies. And that's it. And then if something's going on, it was a science class. I'll say it was science. That's the most I'll say without, telling people's business. But she said, she was helping some other students, and then the teacher got offended, like, oh no, you don't help them, right? You know who you're assigned to, type thing. So fun fact, for this particular aide, because we'd gotten to know each other, we talked, I wanted to know who I was working with. She actually was a doctoral student studying and getting her degree in chemistry. So do you think she could handle 7th grade science? Definitely. But that science teacher never had that conversation with her, never leveraged that. And so it was really a shame, but a lot of things end up being retaught in science class. I was the math teacher at the time. So a lot of times I would ask her, because I knew she was studying to go to school to teach, get her doctorate, all of that. I would ask her, okay, so, even ask her opinion sometimes, knowing what you know about the Spanish language, knowing what you know about how certain things may have been taught, what's your recommendation for how I can teach this, right? What do you think? I would ask her opinion, because just leveraging that relationship, because she spent like most of her day with the kids. I saw them for one period, but it was really unfortunate, because I'm like, wow, that person has no clue how much they're shooting themselves in the foot, because this lady could teach that 7th grade science forward and backwards if she wanted to. But they never stopped to ask. They never stopped to have that conversation. Okay, I see some notes saying we're having a lot of feedback. Hello? That stopped. Whatever you.
I'm
No,
here.
never mind. It's going
Hold
again.
up. I muted my computer. I muted the sound on my computer, but then you're not gonna be able to hear me if I mute myself. Wait a minute. Let me see. Oh, can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up.
I can hear you.
Oh, you can still hear me. Okay, cool. Okay, keep going. Let's keep going. There we go. Okay, so in the audience, do you hear any feedback sound or any noise? Let us know if you hear any of it. All right, IG, you're good. What about Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn? Are you guys good? Do you hear any feedback? Much better. Okay, let's keep going. Um, so wow. So your aide actually was in school.
Yeah.
Actually in school, going to get her doctoral degree, and she's dealing with a teacher saying, "Oh no, you can't do this," as if she cannot handle it at all.
That, but also, like, just imagine though that makes sense though, just for her space, because she could, like, okay, let me not take a role that's as intense because I'm working on my doctorate. So they had nothing to do with mental capabilities or professionalism and all of that. So that's one of the things that people have when it comes to aides and parents and assistants. Some people carry that and assign that.
Wow, that is very, very interesting. And that makes sense for your aide at the time. Like, okay, I'm getting my doctorate degree. Let me not, like you said, have a heavy load of being the actual teacher where I have to do all the things, all the preparation, etc. I can just assist students however they need to be assisted. But then, and that goes back to with some teachers, the views they have on instructional assistant, a paraprofessional. It's like you're viewed as you're less than. You're less than a teacher. You're less than I have to tell you what to do. You listen to what I say, and that's how this show is going to go.
I mean and that's unfortunate, because I'm thankful that was one of my. You know what? Honestly, that was the only aid I ever had in my teaching experience. So this whole concept, this conversation, I'm glad I can speak on that and say that. But that literally was the only aid I ever had. It's not as common, at least here in Texas. And once you get to middle grades, it was not so much a thing. Not quite the same. But just having that appreciation, because I know, a teacher that I'm very close with, that she went through all of the stages, quote unquote, too, right? So she speaks on that a lot. So she would often talk about people's perspective and their interactions with aides for that reason, because she started out as an aide when she was in school. Then she became more of a sub, a permanent sub, until she was fully certified. So, I mean, in terms of people, like you said, assigning these things and carrying whatever, right? Someone said that maybe the teacher was insecure. I don't know. I can't look. I can't call it, like we say at home in New Orleans. I can't call it, and so I'm not really sure what to say about that particular situation. But I'm glad that we were able to move past that, though.
Yeah, and even one of the viewers, Dusty Muhammad, she said the teacher was probably insecure. Did she even know that her instructional assistant was a doctoral student? And that goes back to you building rapport, getting to know your instructional assistant, to even know she's in school. Like that makes me think, like, how do you not know your aide is in school?
But exactly what you said. If your perception, as the classroom educator, the teacher of record, like people say, is all right, you come in, I'm gonna tell you what to do, go do this, this, and this. And sometimes maybe I wonder about the term instructional assistant being taken, that assistant part being two-weighted. You know what I mean? Like when people think about assistants, you might think about like a secretary, an executive assistant. So for some people, that is kind of what carries it. But to answer Dusty's question too, no, they had no clue. They really didn't have much conversation. It was very directive oriented when they had an exchange. So it wasn't the same, trust, empowerment, any of that. It was real basic. Okay, you came in. Oh, here's their copies. I didn't finish making the translated copies. Here, I've just printed it. You go get it for them. It was very basic, to say the least. Very basic.
Yes, that and I want to say my experience being having instructional assistants, I know I had to learn to delegate. For me, I had no problem getting to know my aides. And I was just doing what I knew to do, just like any coworker, any colleague, getting to know someone. And that's what I did with my aides. Excuse me, I had instructional assistants. Then I want to say I can remember my instructional assistants making sure that they worked with me every year. Like, oh, I'm going to make sure I say I want to work with you again. And they were saying, and with some teachers that they seen, they're like, they can't do but too much. And then also they'd be like, Miss Bashir, some of the stuff they're doing, you definitely wouldn't have us doing in the classroom, because I really leveraged my instructional assistants with where their strengths were. Like I had one who was strong with ELA and social studies, another was strong with math and science. So that's what I leaned on them for. So that's like, so for them it was like I didn't for them I made them feel like they were a part of the team, because we are a team. I need your help to do my job. You know what I mean? And it's like, even though, yes, I'm the teacher, I still need your help to do this job that I'm doing. I can't do it by myself. And at the time, I was an emotional support student, so they were a tremendous support for me. And everyone does not have that understanding and mindset of instructional assistant. And I think, like you said, it's that assistant. Oh, you're only here to make copies. That's all I need you for. Even though my aides, one of them, she would do all my copying for me, but she's always say, "What do you need? What do you need? What do you need me to do? What you need me to do?" And then they got to see how I worked, and they got to see how I advocated for them too.
I mean, that's a very big deal. Exactly what you said, in terms of like it takes a team effort. I lean into that emotional intelligence. So we talk about the village. We talk about. I mean, you named today's session the dynamic duo, right? People always like to say, okay, Superman isn't coming. Superman, Superwoman, super person is there already, right? You have to work together. Somebody said it's a marriage. Indeed, like they must work together, and it does require delegation. Like if we delegate in our day-to-day life, why would we not, like in our personal life, I'm saying, why would we not delegate in other spaces? Like no one can be very effective at everything all the time. That's unrealistic. That's unrealistic. You'll be a master of none out there trying to be the jack of all trades. It's not going to go well. It's not.
Right.
Know your lane, delegate as you can. And then it might vary. And so also this, it might vary on different days, right? Because you might have a general flow for what you're working on, your agenda, your style of teaching. But, those surprise, what I want to say, those surprise moments of, oh, we have a special guest, oh, we have an assembly, just anything. Oh, we're doing a different kind of benchmark today. Something's off with maybe recognizing some trivia for a certain heritage, all these kind of things that the way it looks, though, the way you're delegating, what you're delegating is going to change from day to day as well.
Right. And right. And that goes back to the rapport that we talked about. And that's actually one of the tips that I shared the last week, where I said, get to know your instructional assistant, your aide, your para, build rapport with them. And by me building rapport with my aides, that's how I learned, like, oh my gosh, you're really good with math and science. Oh my gosh, you're really good with the reading and the social studies. And how did I leverage them? So when my students had to check in and check out, they always followed up with them regarding their homework, and they knew what their homework was. They would follow up with them. But something they would also do was, if they knew something was going to be a bit challenging, they would say, okay, get this out right now, so that way I can assist you with it before you go home, because they knew something may be difficult for a student. Another thing they did was they would do study sessions for quizzes and tests. Mr. Cartwright, he was good with the math and the science. He would do those tests and those quizzes. Mrs. Clark, she was good with the social studies and the ELA, and she would do the quiz sessions with those particular students as well. And I was very clear with my aides with what I wanted them to do and how I wanted them to do it. So I always told them, we are not doing anybody's work. We are not flipping pages. We're not getting up to sharpen pencils for nobody. We are not enabling these students. We're here as a support, and that's what we're going to be. We're not doing the work for them, because there were some, and that was something that they saw in some other classes. They would say, Miss Bashir, can you believe they're eight, like the other instructors, she said they're writing the homework down for them. And I was like, no, we're not, especially 7th grade, we're not doing that. Now, if the kid, something's wrong with his hand, he injured his hand, or there is I want to say there is maybe a physical need for that student, which none of my students had, that's fine. But other than that, no. Because I remember one time, Miss Clark, she was assisting a student with his homework before he got home. And I'm sitting there watching him, and I see her flipping the pages, and she just like, do this. I said, pause. I said, Mrs. Clark, we're not flipping pages. He can flip the pages. He's going to open a book. He's going to get the pen. He will do it. I said, and I looked at him. I'm not going to say the person. We're going to call him David. David. And I looked at him like, get your hand up. Your hand's not broken. Get to work. She don't have homework. You do.
I mean, but that's very much it. So depending on people's frame of reference, even if it goes all the way back to what student teaching, right? So maybe wherever your student taught, you were trained, it goes back to what, like we said, that heavy emphasis on um, the assistant part, because it's an instructional assistant. That literally does not just only have to do with papers and writing, right? It's still an instructional assistant type thing. So I don't know. So like that's his own, how I think. That's his own observation and social study in my world. But definitely something to consider and really reframe. I think that's worth having more conversations about that, because there's some very specific attitudes and beliefs assigned to it.
Right.
So, and I mean, again, then when we talk about the culture, I like to talk about culture, especially, organizational culture, but classroom culture. the beliefs, the systems, and the actions that are in place. So you might be saying one thing is your belief, but clearly your systems and your actions are not lining up. They're not in alignment because clearly you're not delegating. What Miss Clark is turning pages in class versus really leveraging all that Miss Clark is and can do. So the things are not in alignment. So that's also a moment of honesty that people have to have, right? If
Mhm.
what am I perpetuating? What am I demonstrating? Especially when it comes time again for classroom life. What is it that we're showing? If you want the young people also to be able to know that we learn, we collaborate, we interact with everyone, but Miss, you have Miss Clark turning their page. You have Miss Clark writing down the homework. Then I mean that's incongruent. It does not make sense. It's not working out. It's not going how you think. And we know they're
Right.
watching more than they're listening. Well, she said, we all, but Miss Clark, she never lets her help me.
Yeah,
She
and I
never,
think also going back to knowing how much help you have to give a student in a situation, because then it's like, you have some paras and aides who specifically work with a particular student, and because that student has needs, and then that also, but also being able for an aide to see, to pivot, okay, you know what, they're doing very well right here, I don't need to offer as much support as I normally would, let me work the room, and then also giving the aide that space to work the room. Let me, you have some spaces where no, you need to stay over there in that area, that's your area over there to work with that particular student, and that's your space, and that's your kid,
I told you.
not
I told you
our
that that's
kid.
exactly why. You remember I told you when that aide came in that day and her face
Yeah.
was flustered. That's what had happened. She tried to, right, be of service to all the young people. And they were like, no, those aren't your kids. You're like, she was overstepping her boundaries. So imagine that. Imagine trusting people to be the professionals that they are and hired for those positions. Imagine that.
Yes, and it's like, well, dang, are we children? But that's how some, but it is, I want to say that's how not that you view an aide or instructional assistant as a child, but I want to say how you speak with them. It's like as if you have no skills. You're a blank slate, and I have to give you the skills. I have to show you the skills. And it's like, well, no, that's not how this is working here. Because I've had there were aides in my school. They were retired from other professions.
Right.
They had degrees,
Right.
and it's like you come with this assumption, oh, you're probably in this job because XYZ or whatever. A lot of my aides, they were married, they were grandparents, some of them, they had careers. And the reason they did this is so that they could spend more time with their family, so that they didn't have, it's like, okay, I can make some money, but then I can go home and just be with my family, etc.
Listen, I'm smiling and nodding because I know there was some feedback earlier, so I apologize for that. But my situation, my experience, that's the case in point. This lady literally was working on her degree, had been an aide for a long time, had been a sub, so had the teaching experience, was going after a degree, passed the classroom teachers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Doctoral
mean?
student.
Past the classroom teachers, but that was truly untapped potential, was never tapped into, type thing. So I don't know. Like this is it's a lot to say about the assumptions, and so hopefully through some of these conversations we can make sure to address the assumptions and people be honest though, because not everybody's going to be honest. I'm telling the truth. When I start tilting my head to the side, I'm like, all right, now, come on, y'all. We're gonna brush up against your toes a couple times. We might tap dance on your toes a couple times, but seriously having that honest conversation for what you associate, what you assign, and whether or not it's accurate. Do you really know? Like, are you an instructional aide? This I was doing a training one time. Someone told me, well, the teacher I support, she was like, if I say go right, that means for sure she's going to go left. And I clutched my pearls like, what? What do you mean? And so that was the state of their relationship. So big picture, how is that impacting the kids? How is that impacting the classroom culture, the student achievement? You know, I'm like,
It
ain't no way
does.
she's gonna go left. She's like, if I was
And
a
the
gambling
students
woman, hmm?
and the students will pick that up so fast to see, like, you know what, Miss So and so must not like Miss
Hmm.
Jones. Miss
Hmm.
Bashir must not like Miss Jones because she this and she that. When she do this, she does that. Except, like, kids, the students will pick it up so fast, and that can evenly divide. That can quickly divide your classroom. And then it's like, okay, you're kind of giving your students permission to disrespect another adult in the space.
They'll play parents. You know how kids naturally learn that if there's a situation, a subject where like their parents aren't in agreement, right? Then they'll
Mhm.
pit them against each other, but then the kid gets to sit back and not do.
Yep, and watch.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what happens,
Oh,
right?
we have a comment here. Sauda underscore Medina says, sharing this information with your principal slash diversity and inclusion team higher ups needs to be discussed so that there is change in the system.
Exactly that. That's why we're starting with this piece of conversation. You must be reading our minds because we have some stuff coming up soon where we're having this conversation in a more meaningful way, more detailed way, with more strategies and getting more specific. Because again, this is an undercurrent, right? I know Jamila told me that she was having a conversation with someone, and it was like things we don't talk about, right? You had that conversation with
Yeah.
someone, and this is something
Why
that
don't we talk about this?
people don't talk about this enough. But this is a whole undercurrent happening in schools every day, all the time. Should be the dynamic duo, but we're not saving anybody if this is the attitude and mindset. You're not getting the
Right.
job done. Hmm?
Exactly. Exactly. So let me just recap the tips we went over like last week because because Anika and I have kind of just touched on them as we've been having this conversation. So the tips were, when you're working with your aide, para, instructional assistant, you need to be respectful, you need to build rapport, you need to leverage their talents, give clear instructions, and then have regular check-ins. And this is something you can do. I literally did this every day with my aides. And don't think a check-in has to be a formal meeting where you're sitting down and talking. No, it's sometimes in the morning as we're coming in, we're chatting, good morning, how are you? I'm checking in with them. How did this go yesterday? Or even before we leave, how did this go? What did you think about this? What did you think about that? I'm respecting them as another adult in the space. We shared the space. I had their names on the door too. It didn't just say Miss Bashir. I had their names plastered on the door as well, so they knew they were a part of this environment. My students knew this is an adult. If you cannot get to me, you can talk to Miss Clark. You can talk to Mr. Cartwright. There were situations even when I had a student say, one of the aides came up to him for help and he said, "Oh, you need help?" He said, "No disrespect, but you're not a teacher." And that's what the student said. So my aide came to me and I'm just like, "What now?" I said, "What you say? What you say to Mr.
But where did he get that from, though? That's my question.
Right?"
So
And it's
that's
like the fact that, and I
mhm.
wonder, was it something that happened in your classroom that you felt comfortable enough to say that? But I surely was comfortable enough to tell him that's not how we move here.
That's not what we're doing.
He had to write a whole apology. I said, "Don't you ever disrespect him like that." I said, "The fact that he wanted to help you, you should take it." You know? So, and then also being clear with your aide so they know what your expectations are. How, like, if you're doing a
Clarity.
how do you want me to do this assignment with this particular student? How much help should I give? What do I need to do? And be very clear, just like in your clear directions with your students, have your clear directions with your aides, and then even model and show them exactly what it is, because sometimes our interpretations of things are completely different. And so that way
Definitely.
you don't have no confusion, let me model for you what it is I need you to do.
And going back to the clarity, like imagine this. So, both of us have secondary backgrounds, middle school. So what if as a team there was some consistency? Because like I said, going back to that example, in one class the aide was making copies and translating in real time because the other person forgot to do the translations. Right. And then maybe in my class, they were helping the whole class with different things because, like you said, I'd already showed and modeled this is what I'm going to do tomorrow. This is probably some areas students might need help, and we're helping everybody, all hands on deck. So imagine that power and even planning like that as a team, right? So whether it's elementary or secondary, so that there's consistency. And so then that little boy that came to the door, that won't happen because he won't have that frame of reference from another teacher's class because everyone is on the same page, right? We make it too hard, right? Whenever there's isolation, it's shenanigans as well. We make
Right.
it too hard. We make
Right,
it too
right,
hard.
right. So this was such a great conversation. Now, the conversation with Miss Anika and I does not end here. Anika, tell them, let's give them just a little snippet. We got something coming at the start of the year, the new year, right?
Yes. So it's really extending this conversation, you all, and getting very specific with some strategies. Like earlier, Jamila talked about different ways to do check-ins. We have some very specific ways to do check-ins, and as she said, it won't take over your whole class period, won't take up 10 and 15 minutes. Right. We talked about how it affects the culture. So we have some very specific things to consider, strategies to implement to make sure, y'all, that the culture is on point between you and your person, right? Between Batman and Robin, right? That's what y'all want to
The
call
dynamic
yourself,
duo.
right? Slash that because that's going to affect the class culture, right? We don't want them pitting parents against each other for sure. So we're making sure that we have this conversation. We have some very specific processes, right? We talked about the systems and actions. Yeah, we're masters at that. We're really good at that. And so that's
Yes.
why we're making sure we have this conversation on a full scale. Yeah.
Yes, and we're super excited because these skills here they transfer to so many other areas in your professional life as well as your personal life. So we can't really get into that right now because we have that coming in the beginning of the new year. So can't wait for you guys to present that to you guys. Thank you
Okay.
so
Because
much,
I have a
Anika.
story. I always have a
Yes,
story,
we.
but I'll wait.
I
I'll
got
wait.
some stories
Okay.
too. I got some stories. We gotta hold it back. We gotta hold it back. We gotta hold it back. So thank you so much, Anika, for coming on. But before you go, can you let everyone know where they can follow you, how they can get in contact with you?
Yes, yes. So IG people, right? It's holistic that fluency. Like it's at the top of the live since Jamila and I are going live together. And if you're on Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn, it's Anika S. Jones on LinkedIn. And on YouTube, it is holistic that fluency as well. All right. Thank you
All
all.
right.
Thank you.
Oh, here
Thank
she
y'all for
goes.
joining
She
the
said,
conversation for
I
sure.
love so thank you all so much. And if you are catching this on the replay, put hashtag replay in the comments so we know that you are watching this on the replay. And you know we go live every Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at the coaching corner. And if there's any topic that you would love for us to speak on, please send us a DM. You can DM us. We'll DM you right on back. And make sure you click the link in our bio. We have some freebies in the bio. We got it for teachers,
Yes.
we got it for
Both,
parents, we got
both,
it for
both.
principals. So make
Mm-hmm.
sure you go ahead and check that out. And we will see you next Tuesday.
All
See you
right.
guys.